Hello and welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to another potluck wrap up where I put all of the titles that I have read over the last month in this teapot. I then pull them out at random. I have no idea which book I will be wrapping up for you. I've managed about 10 max in the past, and there are, I'm going to ruin it, quite a few in there still, which always seems to happen around this time of year, but I do have a lot fewer than I did last time, because in the last wrap up I did like a speed round at the end of the month where I just wanted to clear loads of books that I was unhauling. That is done. Most of these books are 3 to 4 stars or higher because I've tried to get rid of as many of the rubbish ones as possible to review. I have 20 minutes to review as many books as possible. It is officially half past as I start this because, once again, the timer that I use is on my phone and I'm using my phone to record, so we're gonna have to there's no official buzzer, but we're going with 20 minutes and we're gonna see what we managed to. Gothtober was an interesting reading month. I read loads of books, but I didn't rate anything a 5 stars. There were no 5 stars in October, which was kind of devastating. But it is what it is. Oh, I've picked out 2 by accident, so we'll do this one second, we'll do this one first. But I know for sure that there are still some 5 stars in this. So is this going to be one of them? The first one is The Lost Ones. This was a very, very close to being 5 stars. Almost perfect ghost story. The Lost Ones is one of the books that was picked for Lamentable Library. I have been trying to catch up with the books we were supposed to read for Lamentable Library, but because we haven't done a live show in 100 years, I have not been held accountable, and therefore I have not been reading them in order. However, did finally get to The Lost Ones, and I'm so glad I did. This is perfect for fans of Flowers in the Attic, Rebecca, and just your absolute classic ghost stories like Women in White, Women in Black, Horrid, actually, to be fair, kind of just general historical fiction with a little bit of supernatural. This definitely falls into that category. The Lost Ones is set during the First World War, I think, or the Second World War. Don't let that put you off, because I am not a massive fan of war fiction. It is literally my least favourite kind of fiction. But I really enjoyed this because basically this woman was a nurse during that war, and her fiance died in her arms after being wounded fatally in a battle. And she has tried to kill herself a couple of times, and she has been saved. And whilst she's being looked after by her sister's fine, but then her sister falls pregnant and starts getting really anxious and thinks that the house is out to get her. So she goes to stay with her sister to kind of repay her sister the kindness of looking after her when she was in this really dark place. However, spooky shit starts to happen, and when no one believes them, they bring in a expert of sorts who apparently does not believe in ghosts and can prove that ghosts don't exist, and has been brought in just to kind of prove to these 2 young women that ghosts don't exist. So you have kind of the science and religious and spiritual side of it. You have a vicar who is rubbish. You have a man of science who is also kind of war wounded. And these very feisty, very strong female characters in a historical setting, which I love to see. The reason it didn't get 5 stars is because there were certain times when it just took a little too long to get somewhere. It took a little too long, or there were certain things about it that were a little too obvious. If you're a fan of Agatha Christie mysteries, Agatha? Who's Agatha? If you're a fan of Agatha Christie mysteries, I can't say Agatha Christie mysteries. If you're a fan of those, you will also really enjoy this because the setup for it, all the clues are there. And it was one of those things where it was kind of obvious to me who it was going to be, but I really, really liked the way this was done. At no point did you know for sure whether it was in their heads or whether there was really a ghost. You wanted to believe there was a ghost, so there was a ghost, but it was a whole thing. And yeah, if you like a ghost story and you like a psychological thriller, this is kind of a mixture of the 2 with a historical setting, and it is perfect for gothic fiction season, which is basically any time from September to November, in my opinion. Really enjoyed this, but it was a 4.5. It wasn't quite a 5, but it was a 4.5. And then the other one I pulled out by accident, which was just sat there waiting for me, was Warriors, Women and Witches. This is a very colourful, I'm going to smack myself in the face with one of these days. This is a very colourful non-fiction, which is about women of myth and mystery who are seen as warriors, witches and powerful women. It was really interesting because it covers a lot of really diverse cultures, a lot of really diverse places, and a lot of really diverse mythos, with key themes being that these women were seen as witches, they were vilified, but they were also seen as warriors and kind of exalted in their cultures, and they're things that we haven't seen a lot of. I really liked that. I really liked that it was a really nice mix. It was a very easy read, and I liked the way it was set out. You kind of have, if I just show you, for example, you have a simple illustration with like an introductory page, and then you go on to kind of more history about the type of woman, witch or warrior that was in it. I feel like if you've got any interest in any kind of mythos, this is really fun, just to kind of get inspiration of something that's not just your standards, not your standard Greeks and Romans. If you want something a bit more diverse, a bit more BIPOC and LGBT, there are loads of different reps in this, and I just thought it was really interesting. This one also got like a 3.5 to 4 stars. Couldn't really fault it. I'm not a massive fan of non-fiction, but I really like the way this was put together. I thought it was a really great book. Okay, next. Oh, my back is going already. My back is going already. That was the chair, not me cracking. I don't know if you heard that. Really should stretch more. Okay, next is going to be House of Hollow, which I only finished recently. So House of Hollow was picked for my TBR by Celine, by Stuff Celine Does. We are looking to bring back a certain book club, but under a different name in the new year. And in the meantime, we are practicing our book club skills by picking books for each other. I adored this. Now, I was really worried going in that I was going to hate it, because so many people have told me that I will love it, that I was like, oh, the stakes are too high. The pressure is there. I don't know. It's not going to be as good as they think it's going to be, or it was like really hyped when it first came out. I think it got like a Fairy Loot or an Illumicrate edition as well. I was really nervous. But off the bat, immediately, something that caught me off guard is that this is set in London, not America. I immediately assumed just from the style of it that it was going to be American. It wasn't. It is British, and it has a real Grimm's fairy tale vibe to it. The whole time I was reading this, it felt like the Hollow Places and the Hazelwood had a love child, and it was this really creepy, fast-paced fairy tale with girls going missing and other worlds and monsters and ghosts and just a whole variety of really fun stuff. It was a very quick read, which I really appreciated, and I will be adding it to the list of books that I recommend to people who want to get into gothic fiction but gently, because it definitely has a lot of gothic tropes, but it is a dark fairy tale. It is a dark fantasy. And basically this follows 3 sisters who were kidnapped or abducted, went missing when they were 7 years old, and then 1 month later they were found in exactly the same spot they went missing from, but completely naked. Their hair had got a different colour, their teeth had grown back. Really creepy stuff. And no one knows what happened to them. They don't remember what happened to them, but 10 years later one of them goes missing again, and the other 2 sisters have to go looking for her. And it has a lot of blood, a lot of gore. But if you enjoy books like Wilder Girls, where there are creepy flowers and fungi, or Mexican Gothic, where there are these insidious other beings and ghosts and creatures that kind of use flowers and scents and things, then I feel like you'll enjoy that. So any of those books that I've listed, if you've read them, which I've definitely mentioned on my channel before and liked them, add this to the list. I was really pleasantly surprised, and it got 4 stars. Again, didn't get 5 because there were things that I could nitpick. There were certain times where, again, the pace dropped off, things weren't happening. There was a romantic plot twist that just didn't need to happen. I just didn't care about it, and it was just a really fascinating read, but really fast paced. And yeah, if you're a fan of Melissa Albert, T. Kingfisher, any of those, I feel like you'd really enjoy this. It's nice to be able to wrap something up within days of finishing it. That almost never happens. Okay, next is The Divines. The Divines is one of the books that I read for Gothtober, and it was also one of the books that I read during my start to finish sprints. So you may have seen some of my thoughts on this already, but just to kind of give you a general wrap up, this is a dark academia psychological book, not quite a thriller, but certainly a cerebral literary book about a young woman who is kind of confronted with some of the stuff that happened to her at school. On the first page, there is a dead body. A body has rocked up on the floor, something horrible has happened. These girls have been bullying each other, but these girls are the Divines. They are rich girls who go to this boarding school who just kind of do weird shit. Like, it's very culty, it's very elitist, it's very dark academia in that aspect. However, we are looking back in time as this woman, much older, is kind of reflecting on her life and reflecting on what happened to her at this school. And the main issue, again, this got like 3.5 to 4 stars. The main issue that I had with this was the resolution. It felt very similar to other literary books where it just kind of ended without any kind of satisfying ending. But at the time when like the story is kind of going through and you're learning about what she got up to, it is very fast paced. It feels like a Sundance film. It feels very literary. It feels very cerebral. The writing was beautiful. I couldn't fault the writing whatsoever. But the actual narrative was weird. Like, it was very strange. And I feel like if you enjoy Plain Bad Heroines or Catherine House, where it's a book with vibes but no story, you will love this. But if you're looking for a dark academia that's more like the Grimrose Girls or If We Were Villains, it's not really that. There's no real solution to anything because nothing really happens. But a really interesting book. But if you're looking for a fast-paced dark academia, this isn't it. It was not what I expected at all. It was a lot slower and probably something that I should have taken more time to indulge in rather than try and read in a day. But I'm glad I did. I'm glad I got it done because I've had it on my TBR for ages, and I'm really glad I finally got to it. Plus, the cover is stunning. The cover is so pretty. Next is Mooncakes. So Mooncakes is a LGBT and disability rep and BIPOC rep graphic novel about a young witch who has a hearing aid and a young werewolf who can't control their magic, trying to solve a mystery of creepy monsters in their woods. I really liked it. It was really cute. It is perfect for fans of the Tea Dragon Society or the Sad Ghost Club. I really liked that it kind of went into the deaf rep, and I really liked the art style. There's not really a lot to say about this. Like, it was a very cute, cozy little mystery. Again, if you like Misfit City, that's another good one that's very similar to this. I feel like if you like a cozy, witchy graphic novel, there's nothing really wrong with this one at all, and the rep's great. Okay, next. And Inspector Calls. So this one was one that I read for the interview prompt of Gothtober and was a TBR vet, and therefore I'm really resisting the urge of unhauling this very nice copy so that I can put something new on my shelf. But I do kind of want to keep it because I actually really enjoyed rereading this. I taught this play whilst teaching, that makes sense. And basically it follows a family called the Burlings as they are all kind of interviewed by the inspector, who has basically come from the morgue. A young woman has been murdered and they are all involved in some way. So if you like, again, those Agatha Christie mysteries where everyone is involved in some way or everyone has some kind of responsibility, this one's really interesting. But it's also really interesting because it looks at kind of socio-political themes of Marxism and communism, whilst not necessarily being on the nose about that, but about caring about each other and protecting the planet and looking after each other. And it's a really interesting, well-crafted play and interview. So it was really nice to reread it. And I don't really want to get rid of this copy, but I also know that if I get rid of this copy, I can put a new book on my shelf. So I'm torn, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great, and I gave it 4 stars because it held up, even though I've read it like 1,000 times from teaching it. Still held up upon the 1,000th read. So that was nice. And also really weird to read a copy of this that doesn't have my scribbles all over it, because this is a newer copy that I was gifted by someone. Not my teaching copy. Don't know where that is, but my notes are in the ether somewhere. This was just a nice, clean copy. I've still got a few minutes left. I think we can squeeze in a couple more. Let's have a look. Next, Go Hex Yourself. I'm really glad I get to wrap this one up because loads of people that I love dearly really enjoyed this. I thought it was a 3 stars. Go Hex Yourself is basically the love hypothesis, but without all the angst and the emotional drama and the shit that I cared about, and instead turned it into a witchy gimmick where, as a Raylo fanfic, he is a sorcerer, she is his companion / familiar. Except that's how it's sold to you. She's not. She's his aunt's companion / familiar, and she doesn't believe in magic, and it takes like 200 pages for anything interesting to happen in this 350-page book, and I was so disappointed at the severe lack of smut and romance. There's like a scene early on where he's touching himself and she's watching him touch himself through a magic crystal. And that's pretty much as spicy as it gets. Like, they don't really do anything until later where he touches her whilst they're stuck in a well. And all I could think, this is how you know it wasn't a good time for me, all I could think the entire time was, that's so unhygienic. And that's not the thought you want to be having when you're reading a smut. You want to be thinking like, oh. You know, you want to be in that mindset. Not, you know, it was unpleasant. And I just felt like it was really gimmicky. I felt like it was really beige. I thought it was really beige, and I was really disappointed because I was really looking forward to this. I was really looking forward to this romance. I love a love story. I love a kind of romance that has those vibes. You know, Grumpy Sunshine. He's so much bigger than she is. She's tiny, but she's feisty and she's not scared of him, even though everyone else is. Like, all of that. It was so annoying, and I was so disappointed. And this was another one that I read start to finish in a day, and yeah. This one was a struggle because I just didn't care about it, like, as I was reading it. But if you want to see some of the other witchy romances that I read at the same time, the vlog's here. I'll put the vlog, or it'll be there. The vlog will be on one of these sites. It will be somewhere. But yeah, so it was, oh god, it was so mediocre. And I will be unhauling this copy. It was really disappointing. There's no point even keeping it for Lizzie, because even though it's a witchy book, it's a witchy romance, and I just know she won't give a shit. Okay, the next one is The Flowers in the Attic. So this will probably be my last one, because I loved this book. The only 5-star in this entire wrap-up, and it was brutal. It was brutal and beautiful and so clever. I have talked before about how I wanted to read this book because my mum recommended it to me when I was 14 years old. And if you've not read this book, let me explain to you why that's traumatizing. So this is set in like the 50s or 60s. You've got this beautiful idyllic family, beautiful blonde, blue-eyed babies, very of the era, if you know what I mean. And they are loved by everyone that meets them. Father is a doctor, the mother is just kind of a stay-at-home wife, beautiful, doesn't have to work. The eldest daughter wants to be a ballerina, the eldest son wants to be a doctor and is like 2 years older than the eldest daughter, and then there are 2 twins that are like 5 years old, precious babies. And on like their father's birthday, one unfortunate night, he gets in a car accident and dies. And their mother starts selling off their stuff and tries to support them as best she can. But she comes from money, she is used to having money, and she is not used to fending for herself. She has no skills, she doesn't want to work. So she decides she's going to move back in with her parents, as it's the only opportunity she has for the family to survive. Her father did not want her to get married, he did not want her to marry who she married, and he is punishing her, or has punished her by cutting her out of the will. So if she wants any money, she has to suck up to this old man. But she promises her children that she will look after them, but they just have to hide for a little while. And basically they get put in this like attic room, and then they're left there for about 3 years. And whilst she does visit them to begin with, that slowly deteriorates as she continues her life outside and returns to the life that she was promised by, you know, marrying into money and having money. And it's fucking traumatic. It's such a sad book. And what I really loved about this, it's in the true lit gothic fashion. You know what's happening when the characters don't. These characters are children. They are struggling with their identity. They are struggling with being so desperate to escape. They start getting sick, and it's so sad. It's so sad. And the thing that I found really traumatizing about it when I read it first, and the thing that kind of I took away from this, and this is a big spoiler warning, the older sister and the older brother have sex because they've only ever seen each other naked, and as they're going through puberty, that's all they have to experience is each other. And I remember being like, that's really gross, and like obviously really jarring, but reading it again as an adult, still gross, still jarring, but so sad. So sad, because there are scenes of sexual assault. There are kind of these moments where they are kind of forcing each other to be what they need because they're growing into adults and they don't have that outside. They play like mom and dad for the kids and really struggle to kind of like help the kids grow, and it's just, oh my god, like it had me in tears. It had me in tears. It is such a beautifully sad, fucked up book, and the plot twist at the end, it just rips your heart out. It's such a sad book, but it was a 5 stars. It was wonderful, but so sad. And now I'm going to have to read the rest of the series, because last time I read the first 3, but I think there's about 8 in the series in total. The cover is still hideous. I still hate the cover, but the writing was beautiful. It was so well crafted that I do feel like I'm going to need to read the rest. I'm going to have to at some point. Probably not in 2023. I don't know if my mental health is ready for it yet, but at some point I will be coming back to this series. Beautiful, beautiful, but oh god, so sad. So sad. So anyway, so that brings us to 20 minutes. That's not too bad. It's not too bad as wrap-ups go. I still have too many in the basket. Too many in the basket, but it is what it is. Let me know in the comments down below, which one of these are you most inclined to pick up next thanks to my wrap-up, or with the spoilers too much and now you won't pick it up? Is there one on this list that you absolutely won't pick up because it's going to be too traumatic? I'd understand. That's completely fine. If you want to just leave me a little house emoji though to let me know you were here, I'd really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Treat yourself to something from Waypoint, because buying yourself a book supports me and my content, and I'd really appreciate that as well. Most importantly though, have a nice day.